Hi, welcome to Aligning Work and Motherhood. I am Esther Girai. I'm a coach. I help frazzled moms in the corporate world to break free from the stressful hamster wheel and live an inspiring and balanced life. In this season of the podcast, I will invite some amazing and remarkable women to share their experiences on how to find that famously difficult balance between work and motherhood. Today, I will talk to Lianne Baker. She's a people professional with almost 20 years of experience, having worked in TV, publishing, hospitality, recruitment, and most recently as head of people and culture for Enfuse Group, a management consultancy based in London. For the last 9 years, Lianne has been juggling work and being a mother to her 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. Lianne talks openly about being a working mom and the struggles that come with that, as well as campaigning for better HR practices around inclusivity and flexibility. Thank you so much, Lianne, for being here and accepting my invitation.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
First of all, I would like to ask you that, you openly talk about the struggles of working mothers, and I would be just curious, how did this start?
So it started after, after I had my eldest son, the company I was working for wouldn't let me go back part time, and I had no option but to resign from a job that I absolutely loved. At a time where I didn't really want to be looking for a new job, I just had a baby. My confidence was at quite a low level, and I was really, really fortunate that I managed to find a fixed term role working for my mum that filled the gap.
Okay.
And then I had my second son during that time, which was great. The timing worked out perfectly with the contract. But then when I came back to look for another job, all the sort of anger and resentment I'd felt after the experience I had before kind of was all bubbling away. And I was trying to find, an HR manager role that was part-time and flexible so that I could do the role around my children. And there just wasn't very much out there at all. The roles that were flexible and part-time just had so many people apply. I'd apply, I wouldn't even hear back. It was really a very difficult and stressful time. And I posted about it on LinkedIn, and something that I put in the post struck a chord with a lot of people. The post went viral. It was seen by over 1 million people. And I had so many people get in touch and say, thank you for saying that. How can I help? And lots of really useful advice, lots of just support. But it made me realize that it's important to have a voice in this area. It's important to talk about these things. I think things have obviously changed a lot since COVID. That's massively propelled flexible working forward in a great way. But I've always felt quite passionate about it, since my experience. And unfortunately, it's still happening to people every day. Only last year, my sister was made redundant after returning from maternity leave. So companies are still doing this. They're still not supporting working parents in the ways that they should. So someone still needs to talk about it.
It's very interesting what you said, that you mentioned that during this whole process, this struggle to find a flexible job, that it impacted a lot your confidence level, right?
Yeah.
What do you think happens there? So what is it that other mothers who happen to be in the same situation, what is it that they could do to protect from feeling insecure or with low confidence?
Yeah, I think it's tricky because I think just being out of the workforce generally, when you have a child and you're on maternity leave, you feel quite, out of the day to day, and you're doing something very different that you may never have done before if it's your first maternity leave. So you're automatically going to be feeling a bit anxious about returning to work. You're going to, your confidence might feel a bit knocked. You might feel a bit out of the loop. I mean, one thing to do to try to counteract that is, during your maternity leave to stay in contact with your team, to use your keeping in touch days, to go in, to talk to people, just stay part of the conversation, not in a way that it impacts your maternity leave in any way, because you should absolutely enjoy it and, really embrace every second of it. But it's just that little connection so that when you do start to talk about going back to work, you don't feel like you've just been gone for a year and you have no idea what's going on. I think that definitely helps. Obviously, the situation that happened to me, it does happen to other people, and that is going to knock your confidence, you know,
Mhm.
not having your flexible working requests accepted or potentially being made redundant. It is going to be a confidence knock. But I think what's really important, and what I tried to remember, was just I knew what experience I had. I knew that I was good at my job. I knew that I could do the job and be a parent. You know, I'd had a baby. I hadn't lost my brains or ambition. I
Exactly.
still wanted a career. And it took me a while to kind of give myself that confidence back. But when people were saying, well, why don't you just stay off? Why don't you just stay and look after the children? And it's like, but I've still got ambitions. I've still got a career. I chose to fight. You know, I chose to say, no, this is what I want, and I should be able to get that. So it's just believing in yourself, remembering the person that you were before you had a baby, and actually having a baby makes you stronger. So
Mm.
remember that too. You know, when you're a mum, you can do anything.
Yes, I fully agree. We just get so more productive and effective and with multitasking, and you can feel so many things at the same time, right? And still control your emotions. So yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. And
I
that's one of the things that propelled me to keep looking for this flexible work, because when I actually did a flexible job, I realized I've never been more productive than when I worked flexibly, than when I worked full time, because
yeah,
you just don't have time to spend, you know, ages talking over a cup of tea. You have to keep meetings on time. You know,
yes,
you become a lot more efficient and productive in that time. So I found it very frustrating when companies said, no, we need people 5 days a week in the office. It was like, well, why? I could do that job in 4 days.
exactly. So talking a little bit about biases, what are the most common biases, if there are, against working mothers? What do you think? You just mentioned one as a personal experience that very often people think that you don't want to focus on your career anymore. You're not ambitious. You don't want to thrive at your work. I guess that is one, right? But what else do you see?
I mean, I think that's quite a big one, and that actually goes into lots of different things. And I think women often, at any stage in their life, will have people that look at them in a recruitment process and still think, well, you know, they're at the age where they'll probably get married and have babies soon. I mean, that age is pretty wide as well.
Yeah.
You know, anything from 20 to sort of mid to late 40s. It's a very wide window. I think it's even more ridiculous now that even, you know, with the changes to parental rights and dads being able to take off equal time, it's still the woman that gets the bias, you know, it's still them. And even women who've chosen not to have children suffer from the same bias when they, you
Yes.
know, start interview processes and join companies. So I think that is a really big one. And I think it's not something to be underestimated. And I think the other thing, you know, I mentioned about part time, often mums juggle parenting and working by
Yeah.
working part time. And there's a lot of negative connotations to that. You know, there's lots of, a colleague yesterday was saying that people used to refer to her as a part-timer when she left, and you know,
Wow.
it's really frustrating, particularly when you know that you're working more hours in total.
Yes.
um, and I think previously there was a real thing about presenteeism. Yeah, we can all sit in an office for 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day. Are we working for all that time? I don't
Yeah.
think so. So actually, the bias against people that are working more flexibly, working from home, or working a different pattern, I think can be a big one. It can stop us getting opportunities that should come our way.
If I'm correct, you're working as a part-timer, right? And still you are
Yeah.
in a senior role. So
Yes.
I think that's another challenge that if you are working in 4, 5, 6 hours a day, then probably you won't get as many opportunities in senior or leadership or managerial roles.
Yes, and I think that was certainly the case when I was looking a few years ago, after having my second son. Most of the roles that was the level that I was looking at, you know, they were full time or nothing.
Hmm.
I think a lot has changed since then. There are a lot more senior roles that are more flexible,
Hmm.
and certainly allow working from home or different hours or adjusted hours. For me, I think since I've been able to work part-time hours and work from home, I've been able to advance my career significantly.
Mm,
Because if I was still going into the office every day and trying to manage school drop-offs or pickups or one or the other, I wouldn't be able to do, anywhere near the hours that I currently work. Because I do 30 hours at the
mhm.
minute. It would be more like 20 if I
Yeah,
consider having to get to London, get to an office.
yeah.
It just wouldn't make it worthwhile. So the hours that I do mean that I can give 30 hours a week to my senior role, which is perfect.
And what's your secret? So is it luck to find a job like this, or what is the key here? What do you
I
think?
think there's a mixture. I think, I mentioned before, I think COVID has done an awful lot to make it easier for
Mm,
flexible working in whatever way, whether it's hours, whether it's working from home, whether it's just having a bit more of a hybrid pattern. I think that's made a massive difference. I'm seeing a lot more roles come up that would
mhm,
suit parents, not just mums, but parents. I think luck comes into it as well, being in the right place at the right time to find those opportunities.
mhm,
And that definitely was the case with my current job. I just happened to spot it on LinkedIn at the perfect time. So it was luck. But I think a lot more companies now are understanding the need to be a little bit more flexible when they're
mhm.
writing job adverts to think, does this need to be full time? Does this need to be based in a particular location? Sometimes the answer is yes, but lots of the time there is an element of flexibility you can add to it.
I'm just, thinking because I think there are really two opposite directions on this. So on one hand, yes, there is a great trend that having more flexible options, really more remote positions. On the other hand, many huge companies now just started to ask their employees go back to the office. Why do you
Yeah.
think this is happening?
I think there's a few reasons. I think one is that a lot of companies have invested a lot of money in real estate, and
Yeah.
it must be very sad to see these huge, beautiful, empty offices.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a real element to getting people together.
Mm-hmm.
My company, we've only recently got an office, but we haven't said people have to be there on specific
Mm-hmm.
days. It's just a base when people want to use it. People do use it. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people that still want to get together and collaborate, and it's so nice to have our own space to do that.
Yes.
I love going in when I can. um, but I think there are also a lot of people that are just afraid. They don't quite trust their team, and they're afraid that if people aren't coming in and sitting at a desk in an office, what on earth are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I would massively question that anyway. You shouldn't be employing people that you don't trust. You should be looking at outputs, not hours. There's so much more to it than that. It is very frustrating when I keep reading more companies forcing employees back, because I just think those
Yes.
people will just leave, because there's so many other companies that have seen a huge benefit from working from home, working flexibly, working in more of a hybrid way. People will just go there. And I often think that I often answer these polls, if you were made to go back into an office 5 days a week, I would
Yeah.
leave. I would
Yeah.
find another job immediately.
Yeah.
It's just the way that I want to work. And it's not just me. My husband feels the same. Since he's been able to work from home, he can have a much more active part in his children's life. He's not getting home at 7:30 at night, exhausted from a day in London or having to drive. Instead he's here for when they get home from school. Yes, he's still working, but he can say hi to them. And it also means that I can do more as well. If he's here, I can go into the office.
Yeah, yeah. I just couldn't agree more. Yeah. In my personal experience, so when my baby was born before COVID, so it was a huge difference that my partner, he went to the office like for 2 months maybe, and then COVID happened, and then suddenly he was working from home, and then it was such a difference that I was at home with a almost newborn, having no clue
Yeah.
what to do, right? He's just
Yeah.
crying all day, and then I was
Yeah.
just going crazy, and it was huge difference that he was at home, maybe working, maybe on calls, but still he was
Yeah.
there. I could reach out to him, and
Yes.
even since that, I think it's such a huge difference in how we do parenting, in our well-being, right? You have the time probably to go out for a run in your lunchtime, or you have just a little bit more time for yourself, and instead of wasting this time for commuting. Yeah, so I'm a
And
big
I've definitely
advocate.
noticed that, you know, because we had children, two children before, years before COVID, and then
Hmm.
had a baby, you know, just last year. So I just definitely noticed it. You know, we just said, wow, wouldn't it have been amazing if
Yeah.
this had been an option? And also it meant that I could pick up elements of my job from home as well. I did have a slightly shorter maternity leave being a third child, and because my
Mm,
situation's different, but being able to work from home meant I could do keeping in touch days so easily. I was
yeah.
just online. It was perfect.
Yeah. I hope that the trend will go just to this direction, and go with hybrid
Yeah.
working and for keeping the opportunities to work from home. Yeah.
Definitely. And you're right, it definitely helps with well-being. It takes a lot of anxiety away from having to travel. You know, you've got so much more time for yourself when you're already at home. You know, I can literally work until the minute I have to get the kids from school. Whereas
Yes.
in previous jobs, I'd be looking at the time thinking, well, if there's any traffic, I'm not going to get to
Oh, yeah.
nursery on time or school. So this way I feel a lot more relaxed. And I think my company gets a much better version of me.
And the family as well, right? You get
Yes.
just better versions. So, uh, how stressed would you say you are?
I mean, I think it varies on a daily basis, but I would say I'm not too stressed. I think
Mhm.
I have found a really good balance where I'm doing a job that I love. I have the amount of support I need around me to be a good parent, and I'm not taking on too many things that
Mhm.
kind of make it noisy. You know, I realize my limitations. I realize, you know, there's a lot I can't do now that we have a third child, just because she's so little. I
Yeah.
think we got to a point with the boys where they were, you know, a lot older and a lot more responsible now because they're 7 and 8, and now I've gone back to the beginning. So there's a few things that I can't do, but I just understand my limitations, and I know it's just a short period of time. So yeah, I think that's the key to not being too stressed, just
Mhm.
knowing what I need to say no to keep my own sanity, really.
Okay. And is there any other tricks or tips that you would be happy to share with others?
Yeah, I mean, I think I am a real list writer. And I think, you know, not only am I getting older now and slightly more forgetful, but just with three children to get to three different locations and a busy job and a husband and lots of pets, I have to have lists. If it's not on the
Yeah.
list, it's gone forever. So every now and again, I'm like, oh, that thing, I need to quick write it down somewhere. But I think following my lists, ticking them off is a really beneficial part of my life for work and at home. I've got a home list and a work list. And also, I think really I have to prepare things in advance. You know, I can't just leave things to the last minute. I have to put all the kids' clothes out the night before. The bags are packed by the door, lunches are made, meals are planned. I think that's been a huge thing to help reduce stress,
Mhm.
because a lot of stress comes with sort of last minute panicking and
Okay.
trying to
Yeah.
get everyone out of the door on time to different locations, especially on days when I do need to go into London or my husband needs to. You know, we have to plan that ahead. So just planning, you know, getting things out, even laying your own clothes out the night before, just takes away one decision that you have to make.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a really important part, and just remembering to say yes when people offer to help.
Hmm.
I'm the sort of person that, oh, I try and do everything myself. I need to remember to ask for help or say yes when people offer, and knowing when to say no to things as
Mm.
well, and just saying, do you know what, I would love to do that, but I just can't fit it in right now. And being honest with myself about that too.
Yeah. I guess that is a very difficult area for most of us because, well, I really believe that we women had been socialized to be good girls, right? To help always other and support others and be nice and be kind. And it's so difficult for us to say no because then you have to sit in an uncomfortable situation where the other person probably is not okay with with that situation, would have a different expectation towards you, right?
Yeah.
And it's very, I guess that moment is very hard, but if you learn to do that, then it's just repeating and repeating and repeating, and it can make such a difference in your life when you just do the things that you really want to, or you really have capacity for, and the rest you learn to recognize what is over your limits and just say no. Yeah.
I think being honest about it, no one can argue with that. And I think that's it. You do want to please people, but I think when you
Mm,
become a parent and you have a job, you just have to know what your limitations are. And I think if you're honest about that, people completely understand.
yeah. And what about the expectations in your in your professional life? Because I believe that is one of the most difficult. Because if you want to have a career, right, and the professional success, then
Yeah.
very often we think that the key to get there is to say yes to everything, to be always available, to fix everything, all the problems, and find solutions, and just really always be there and be visible at work. So can you still do that by having healthy boundaries?
I think you can. I think the type of company that you work for can make a huge difference to that
Mm,
because, I've worked in companies since being a parent where you kind of have to pretend you don't have children. You
okay.
have to arrive at
Wow.
work and kind of pretend they don't exist.
Just
People
don't
know that they do, but
just don't speak
you
about
know,
them, right?
don't
And
talk about them, if they're off sick or, there's a school strike or COVID or whatever the reason that your
uh-huh.
children might be at home when they shouldn't be, you feel like you have to lie or hide it or pretend and try and fix it and,
Mm-hmm.
desperately call grandparents and hope that they can help. And I think when you work in those environments, you definitely do feel that added pressure that you have to
Yes.
kind of completely perform as though you don't have children and
Mm-hmm.
basically pretend that that enormous part of your life doesn't exist. I think the last few companies I've worked at have been completely different. The company I work for now, family comes first.
Mm-hmm.
We call it parenting loudly, and we do.
Mm,
We if the kids are sick, we say that we're working from home. The kids are sick. Look, here they are. Wave. It's really lovely. It feels like I can be a parent and do a great job, and it also empowers me to leave loudly as well and
mm-hmm.
say, sorry, I have got a hard stop at 3 o'clock. I need to do the school run. And what is fabulous is that it's not just me that does that. All of our directors play a really active role in their children's lives and they parent loudly too. It helps that they're all men because it just empowers me, it empowers other parents to just behave how they want to
Mm-hmm.
behave, be the parents that they want to be, because that makes us better employees. Because if
Yes.
we've taken some of that anxiety away and if we're honest about our limitations, then it makes us better. So I think that definitely helps. And I would definitely say, not only knowing your own boundaries as a parent, but if you're in a position to influence how other parents working
Mm-hmm.
with you or for you can behave, these things matter so much. Parenting loudly, leaving loudly, it really helps other people.
Yeah, I think that's very, very important. And even though, yeah, so even though you're in a company where you feel that probably there is a negative connotation with leaving earlier and all this stuff, I guess it's still worth a try to see what happens if you open up about your private side of your life, right? About parenting struggles or the kids being sick, because maybe the others have just the same issues. It just they don't
Yeah.
open up because they don't know what would happen. And I
Yeah.
think, as you just said, it is one of the biggest stress factors when you don't know what are the expectations. And I always just encourage everyone to, okay, if you don't know, then just talk to your manager, talk to HR. As soon as you understand what is exactly expected from you to do in all these situations when the kids are sick or you need to leave earlier, it just
Yeah.
find an answer and don't try to expect the worst in your head, right? Because very often we just do that. I'm not saying that there are no companies who indeed treat people like that, because that also exists, unfortunately. But I guess,
Yes.
as you just said, then probably it's not the good company, and you need to find another one which
And
is
it,
family
and this
friendly.
is Definitely, and I think that's the most important thing. You know, it's really difficult to tell, but I think you can understand a lot from a culture, even just in the interview process. And I think the situation that found myself in, you know, all those years ago, looking for jobs, really struggling to find things that were part time, it gave me a confidence to talk about these things in an interview that I would never have dared do before.
Mm-hmm.
And because it became such an important part, it was just non-negotiable that I had to work around the childcare that I'd put in place. It gave me confidence to speak like that in the interview and say, well, this is, you know, this is the expectation from what I can do, but in return I can give you. And I think just having that mindset made such a difference to that relationship even from the beginning, and it made me a little bit more confident about saying no to things that just wouldn't work. You know, when
Mm-hmm.
I was, you know, people got in touch about jobs that were sort of an hour and a half away, I was like, no, that's just not going to work. I can't make up the time. I don't want to be an hour and a half from if my child is sick and I need to pick them up. You don't always have an awful lot of choice in terms of the roles that are available, but I think being confident to speak up about them and spot the red flags from the companies very early on. If you're applying for jobs and there's no mention of family, you know, you can't see their family policies before you join, you know, spot those red flags long before.
Mm.
And if you are in a company, you know, that you're worried about, you know, how they feel, like you said, talk to people, make it your narrative. You know, I'm a parent, these are the problems that I have and the challenges, but it doesn't mean I'm not a brilliant employee for you.
Mm. Yeah, I really see you, Lian, as a fantastic example that this could really work. I mean, you can speak out loudly about your personal life, about parenting. You can parent out loudly, and you can still find a job that makes you passionate, and you feel that you really thrive there, and having three kids besides that, because it's just yeah, the whole package, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's busy.
I can imagine. Yeah. And would you say that, you know, there is always this saying that you can have it all as a working mother. Would you say that you have it all?
I don't I don't really like the phrase have it all, but I do hear that phrase an awful lot. I don't think anyone can ever claim to have it all. I think
Mm,
there's always things going on in your life that mean, you know, one element is never quite perfect. You know, and just when you sort of think you've got everything sorted, then something
something
else
happens. Yeah.
happens. Yeah, life happens, things happen. You know, it's difficult. But what I would say is that being able to work in a job that you enjoy, being able to be the parent that you want to be, being able to
Mm,
find a working pattern that suits you and your family is a really great step to having it all. And
mm,
I feel that, you know, the current situation that I have, being able to work from home, being able to work the hours that I need, means that I can do an amazing job. I have 6 hours a day at work where I'm completely committed to the company. I love it. I love my job. I'm very passionate about it. But then at 3 o'clock, I'm available to pick up all three kids. I do a nice
mm.
little loop now of school and nursery. And that evening, I'm a mum and
Mm,
I'm their mum. And I try to put work down as much as possible in that time and just be really, really present.
mm,
So, yeah, I'm never going to say that I have it all, but I definitely think you can put things in place in your life to mean that you can do the role that you want to do
mm.
and to the ability that you can do it and the standard that you want to be doing it at.
Yeah. For me, having it all basically means, yeah, as you just said, you cannot have everything perfect and all the life areas covered and have as a dream version. But what you can have is identify maybe three, four top priorities and make sure that those are in a nice shape and in a nice place for you. Let it
Yes.
be work and kids and yeah. In my case, probably it's always the household chores which are on the last on the list and the mess at home, but you just
Yeah.
cover
You
everything,
have to
right?
embrace that too, because
Mm.
our house is currently on the market, so we do have to kind of keep it
Oh,
pretty tidy, but at the same time it is a lived-in house, it's a family home. If
yeah,
people come in and see a museum, they're probably not going to want to buy it. So I do have to kind of not worry too much that the Lego's out and that the bottles
yeah,
out, and it's a family home.
exactly. Yeah. The other day we had someone to fix something in the bathroom, and it was so funny because he just entered and he said, "You do have kids, right? How beautiful is this?" Yeah, that's a nice way of saying how messy was everything, but all the toys around. But yes, in the end, we can't just pretend that we don't live here or we don't have kids, right? So it, yeah,
Exactly.
so that's normal. Lianne, besides work and besides being a mom, what inspires you?
Well, it's quite difficult to say because I think really my children inspire me. And I know how that sounds, but they do. My whole life I wanted to be a mum. And I've been quite open on LinkedIn about the fact that it was a challenge. I had
Mm,
to go through IVF to have my eldest son. And that really kind of gave me even more dedication to want to be a mum. And so now that I have, my three gorgeous children, they do inspire me every day to
mm,
be fun, to be better, to see the world through their innocent eyes. And that keeps me present, that keeps me grounded. We love taking them away. I did an awful lot of traveling before I got married and had children. I do much less now, but
mm,
I'm just inspired to take them places and see the world through their eyes. And I can't wait till they're all a little bit bigger so that we can explore the world together.
mm,
Um, I do every now and again get a minute to myself to go for a really nice walk and
mm.
appreciate the countryside around us. And, we have a dog. I love getting out with the dog. Um, and I also, in my spare time, I have an Instagram page dedicated to interiors. And that's a little bit of a
Mm,
side passion for me. It's something that I'm very interested in. And when I get a moment to sit on my phone when the kids are in bed, I love getting involved in the community on there. So
mm. I see you as a very balanced and really grounded and happy person as I hear you speaking about all your life, and that's just so nice to hear because it's so difficult, I think, for mothers to find this balance. There is so much on our plates and so much things to spin around. So what would be
yeah,
your advice to others? What is the key to find this balance?
I think living in the present is so important. I think it's very easy to get absorbed in, like you were saying, the household chores, the day-to-day stuff, when you just feel like you're constantly doing the same thing over and over again. But it's so important to just take a step back and look at what you have right now. I think because our house is on the market at the minute and we're talking about moving from a house that I love, that we've had all three of
Mm,
our children in, I just want to make the most of it. I kind of want to just remember what it feels like to live here and not get absorbed in thinking, oh, we need to do this, we need to do this.
mm,
And even with the children, especially having a third child now, she turns 1 next month. I
mm,
don't know where that time has gone. And because she's our last baby, I've been trying to really live in the moment with her,
mm.
remembering how she
Grab the
is right
moment.
now, because I know from seeing my boys who are so much bigger how quickly they grow and how soon the baby phase is over. So I think living in the present, reminding yourself to stay grounded and to not be worrying about tomorrow, plan ahead, obviously,
Hmm.
be organized to help with the balance, but remember to live in the minute. And I think try to find the fun where you can, try not to let your evenings and weekends be taken up with boring stuff that doesn't matter if it gets left a bit longer. Try to
Mm,
have fun things in the diary that you can do together as a family to enjoy. Because when you go back to work on Monday, you want to feel like you've had a bit of weekend somewhere, doing something nice rather than just going from A to B.
Oh, that's so wonderful. I love this. Yes, just be in the present. And I think that's so difficult sometimes, but when you manage to forget all the stressors or the task list, then that's just a marvelous feeling when you can just go to the playground with the kids and just enjoy with them, playing with them, be
Yeah.
on their level, right? And just yeah, be in the moment. Beautiful.
That's so important because, often they say, "Oh, mummy, can we go to the park?" And, I have to think very carefully before I say no. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to always say no because we need to do X, Y, and Z. Sometimes I just need to say yes, and
Yeah.
just need to go with them. And on the way to school this morning, they said, "Can we have an ice cream after school because it's really hot?" And my initial reaction was, "Well, no, because we've got ice creams in the freezer." And I was thinking, do you know what? Yes, you can have an ice cream
Why
because it's
not?
a nice
Yeah.
day and I would quite like one too.
And that's the fun part, right? Because it's so
Yeah,
fun to be with our kids. They can be so
exactly.
funny and entertaining. And at
Yeah.
least my son, he's just I love that he's always smiling about he's just always wants he's always ready for any fun, any naughty things, especially
How
naughty
old is
things.
he?
He's 4 years old, so he's
Oh
still
yeah,
in the
that's a good
phase
age.
that and he has a lot of energy, so he's still in the phase that every morning is either a funny chasing him or a stressful chasing him, but it's kind of our decision, right? And it's what you
Yeah.
said, just keep in mind that it's my decision to be in the present or just being stressed
Mm,
that okay, again we will be late, we need to
yeah.
dress him. But yeah, on the other hand, it can be just fun and just enjoying this really, really great phase that we
Yeah.
get. Yeah.
And I think, I hope no one's listening to me thinking, "Oh, well, you must have it easy. It sounds very stress-free." Absolutely not. We have days where everyone screams at each other. The kids come home cross, they fight each other, and I'm not going to lie, that is stressful. It's
Mm,
exhausting, especially when you just finished work. But it's part of it, and there's
yeah.
so many fun parts too. So you just have to remember it's just a phase, it's just a day, it's just a,
Mm,
a moment. And overall, it's the
yeah.
best job that you could ever have.
Exactly. Okay. I think that's the best way to close this conversation. So thank you so much, Lianne, for being here. And I wish a lot of happiness to your whole family.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
You've been listening to Aligning Work and Motherhood with Esther Girai. If you feel that this resonated with you and you would like to make some changes in your life or share your story, check out my contact details in the description box and drop me a message. I would love to hear from you. Thank you for listening.